Live from the basement of the YouTube headquarters, it's the Stacking Benjamin Show. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and remember that frugality thing? Yeah, according to the people who determine what's hot, unlike those jorts your dad insisted on wearing all summer, it's making a comeback. We're talking spending less and living more with our roundtable group of money friends. But that's not all, of course. We're also going to fire up the stove and cook up another batch of my amazing trivia for our year-long competition. And now, here comes a guy who's ready to help us cook up some frugal living tips. It's Joe Saul-Sehy.
Hey there, stackers, and happy Friday and happy December to you. Man, it's getting cold, but you know what? We're bringing the warm, well, not even the warm, the super hot tips for you today because we're talking frugality. And for that, we've got a fantastic roundtable group of contributors. But first, Doug, how you doing, man?
The hair's not combing like it used to, Joe. There's just
you combing both of them? Combing both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
A bit better like combing my beard.
I was going to say, you're showing off because you have two of them left to comb. Mine is all done. I have two hairs. Doug and I have three hairs between us on the top of our heads. However, we do have three great contributors. So let's meet them. Let's start off with a woman who is far above Manhattan this lovely first Friday in December. Paula Pant is here. How are you?
I am fantastic. And on the topic of hair, I will say mine is it's pulled back in a bun right now for those of you watching on YouTube, but I think this is a record in terms of how long I've been able to get it. I hit like a growth plateau, and then with the with the right nutrition dialed in and some supplements, I was able to push past the plateau.
To do what? To get hair?
Are we still talking about hair?
Yeah, growth. Hair, yes.
Growth.
So are you saying your hair does not grow? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah. Well, I'm saying it reaches a certain length and then it stops, But then I like changed my nutrition, I changed my diet, and then it started growing again.
Wait a minute. This is crazy talk. Are you saying that with better nutrition and better diet, your body actually operates better? Is that what you're trying to tell us?
That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
What kind of madcap science is that? That is crazy. We're going to meet the madcap scientist on this podcast on Fridays. He's the man behind personal finance for long-term investors. Jesse Cramer's here. How are you, man?
Hey, I walked away and I came back and you guys were talking about growth pills. Is that correct?
Nope.
Exactly right.
Not doing it.
I mean, I'm here to talk about madcap science and growth pills. I mean, yeah, I'm ready for this episode. It's early and
but
what's up?
Do you, Jesse, have some frugality pills? Because we are talking frugality today. Like, imagine if we could just take a pill and all of a sudden we're like, no, I'm not going to buy that now. That'd be cool.
Right. So like, you're talking like not the official pharmaceutical growth pills, but like the cheap DIY, you can, follow your own online recipe growth pills. I'm in for it.
That's right. It's good stuff. And the guy who has I don't know, how do you segue off of Jesse's growth pills thing? I got no idea.
A guy who has an obnoxious amount of hair.
He does. Obnoxious amount of hair and an obnoxious amount of good looks. Mr. Andy Hill is here with us from Marriage, Kids, and Money. How are you, brother?
I'm great. As my 13-year-old daughter would say, you're really glazing me right now, Joe. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's 13-year-old talk.
That's
for
a real thing.
Really, like,
I know. I hear that.
You know what I'm talking about, Doug. You know what I'm talking about.
I do. Absolutely.
Well, wait a minute. I understand that it may or may not be a real thing, but can anybody? What does it mean, Andy? What is it? Is that good? Is that bad?
It is. It means you're like building me up. So thank you. You're glazing me.
You know, Andy, we don't need to build you up because you're amazing. And we love Marriage, Kids, and Money. And I heard a little bird told me that you may in January have a new book coming out. Say it ain't so.
It is so, my friend, and it is own your time, and I'm very excited about it for the YouTubers who are watching right here behind me. I've got a nice little visual of it here, and before the show, I told the guys that I put it up with like some chewing gum and some duct tape. So if it falls down on my head during the live recording, I think we could all laugh. That would be good for my ego. I think that'd be great.
See, and Paula, Andy says science be damned too. None of us like science except you.
It sounds like he's trying to manufacture a viral moment.
Oh man, you know what? It's all about the views, Doug. You know what are you going to do, right? You got to get the attention where you can.
Did you see that Stacking Benjamins episode where Andy Hill had that thing drop behind him? It was amazing. It was incredible.
Blood
you missed
was gushing everywhere.
I love it.
Yeah, it was great. But very seriously, Andy, I know you worked very hard to go from being somebody where a corporation owned your time to you owning your own time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know, it happened for a good 15 years. I had a corporate employee life, and it was good to me during that time until it wasn't good to me. You know, it got to that point where I said, "Oh, I'm married now. I'd like to spend some more time with her. Oh, we've got kids now. I haven't seen them in a while, so I'd like to spend some more time with them."
What are their names again?
Exactly. And it was those times where I'd be like on the show floor at a truck conference or a car conference somewhere in Las Vegas, and it'd be my daughter's 7th birthday, and I'd be sitting there under these fluorescent lights, you know, on a FaceTime call being like, what am I doing? Why am I feel like I've jacked up my priorities here. Of course, I'm trying to take care of my family, but can I move in the direction of owning more of my time with these financial moves that I'm making so that I can be a more present parent? Or at least I want to say that I am a family guy, right? I keep saying I'm a family guy, but am I really prioritizing my time in that fashion? So I wanted to put together this book to kind of talk through that story that I went through from feeling time broke to feeling time wealthy, and a lot of families that I interviewed over the 10 years I've had my podcast are in the story as well. And I'm excited to share it.
I am so excited. We're going to spend a whole 30 or 40 minutes with you in January diving into this so you can mentor our stackers on how to better own their time. It's a great January topic, so I can't wait for that. What I love about having you here, and the reason I really like having you here today, Andy, is a big piece of this transition. I gotta believe when you decided it was time for you to start working for yourself, like frugality wasn't a maybe, like you had to be frugal, I would think.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then a big part of that preparation was me obviously saving up enough money to make that leap from corporate to solopreneur, to say, okay, even if I completely mess this up, I've got some money set aside. And then I'm going to do it in January of 2020 because nothing bad will happen in 2020. So I've got the money set aside. What's going to go wrong? Boom. Yeah. Talk about frugality moment. March 2020, my contracts that I had set up for my business all went away. I had to live on my savings for a little while. And then, of course, I had that moment of, oh, my God, did you just make the worst mistake for your family, man? You know, but then, you know, you use your frugality muscles. They all come back and say, well, do I need all of these tools and things that I thought that I needed? Oh, I can really get by doing a lot less with these types of things. So as a solopreneur, definitely used frugality and that muscle to help me survive that year. And then 5 years later, I'm still standing. So that's great.
I know. I love how that story has such a happy ending, even though the pit in your stomach, like, oh God, oh no, what the hell did I just do? Well, I can't wait to dive into frugality with you, Paula, and Jesse. And by the way, for people that aren't here on YouTube, Paula's in the middle of like some movie cubby video or something. Paula, what the hell's going on behind you while we're recording?
I meant to transition to a table that would just have a blank wall behind me before we started recording, but then I got caught up in work and I looked at the clock and it was 5:03 and I was like, I need to jump on now, and so I didn't have time to move tables.
Paula's in a train station.
Yeah, she's.
So yeah, this is the gym in my building. Actually, that's where I am right now. I'm doing this from the gym.
Yes, she'll be like, I worked out for a whole hour, worked out my jaw muscles. Yeah. Well, Paula is talking frugality. She is in the gym doing this. No studio for her. And Andy's going to help us. Jesse's going to help us. We're going to talk frugality today, guys. So buckle up. But before we get started, we got a couple sponsors to help us keep it on. So you don't have to pay for any of this roundtable goodness on this Friday. So We're going to hear from them. And then Andy, Paula, and Jesse are going to dive into helping you live a more frugal existence. All right, the inspiration for today's piece comes to us from the Wall Street Journal, and it is a piece about how frugality is making a comeback. About how I didn't know, Paula, that frugality was ever dead, but apparently frugality is kind of like fashion trends, where all of a sudden people are like, oh yeah, I remember that.
Well, I think it goes through cycles, it goes through waves, and we had this prior to the pandemic. We had this bull run, and I think towards the end of it, 2018, 2019, we had been in a good market for a while. People were feeling confident, and then boom, of course, 2020, everything changed, and then big, wild inflation hit. So all of the factors were there to make frugality awesome again.
Make frugality awesome again. Is that the next hat? Yeah, it doesn't quite. Yeah. I don't know. We'll have to figure out a way. Jesse, I think Paula's gotten somewhere. I mean, this isn't back just because people are thinking frugal's cool. I think we're finally all feeling inflation.
Yeah, I think it's make frugality extremely rad. MFR is the acronym. It's a big MFR. That's a big MFR on your hat. Sorry, Joe. I missed your transition. I was just sitting on that joke, and I don't even know what you said.
I don't have any idea. I just had to keep rolling. I said, I do think it has, you're looking at economics all the time. I mean, looking at the numbers, this has got to be, like Paula suggested, maybe about not just being a fad, but about the fact that inflation seems to be pretty high right now.
Yeah. I mean, and even I think if you actually look at year-over-year inflation, maybe we are back down in that 3-4% range. That's like more normal. But just in case anyone's confused out there, the 9 or 10% inflation from 2 years ago, like that's still baked into the prices, right? Prices haven't gone down. It's just that they're not going up as quickly as they were before. And yeah, so I think for a lot of, average Americans, their budgets are stretched. And I also think that something goes on in the financial media space that we all participate in our own ways. And there are these kind of like trending narratives at any given time. And yeah, for a long time now, one of the trending narratives that I've seen has been, stocks are up and bull market this, and it's great to be in AI. And so maybe the frugality narrative hasn't been as loud, but I still think there are a lot of people out there for whom, life is expensive, and having a solid monthly budget is really important, and implementing some sort of frugal principles into your life has a lot of benefit. So I don't necessarily see it as a reason to be worried that this narrative is coming back up in the Wall Street Journal. I do think it's interesting, though. I found it to be a really interesting article.
Oh yeah, me too. We're gonna dive into it in just a second, but I think, Andy, just to kind of put the stakes here, you're a guy that wanted to own your own time, so you had to be frugal. But for people that are content doing what they're doing, we've all seen the numbers. It looks like healthcare cost in 2026 for all of us probably going through the roof. It's a time when I think we have to learn to be frugal.
Absolutely. And I think it all comes back to your values too. If you start to look at your money a little bit deeper and you say, okay, is this a time for me to be frugal? And if you want to translate that into like, hey, I want to spend according to my values, just looking at your numbers and just saying, okay, what am I spending on that I don't actually care about? I can work on decreasing that like crazy. And then obviously the stuff that is just the daily grind of like buying the groceries, paying for the gas, that's a little harder to fight. But the lifestyle stuff we can continue to look at and see what we really need, especially if our income didn't go up that 9%, Jesse, and the 3% and the 4% over the past few years, because that's the reality we're all dealing with.
Can I stick with you for a second, Andy? Because this piece from the Wall Street Journal, and I'll link to it in the show notes, but nobody that's listening to us or hanging out with us on YouTube has to see this or know about it. We'll go through some of these frugal tips they have. One of the early ones, Andy, is diluting their household products, like cutting their cleaners in half and then going half water, half cleaner. Is that frugal, or is that a bridge too far?
Everybody's situation's different, so that might be effective for somebody in a very low income situation. But I would venture to say the amount of time spent on something like that might be better used on, I don't know, maybe increasing income. If I spent 4 hours a week diluting my soap or some of the things that are in the article we'll talk about, maybe I could have spent 4 hours figuring out a way just to make a little bit more money in my life. And that can be as simple as, I've found at least, just looking around your house and finding some things that you don't use anymore that maybe have a little bit of value. You could sell them on Facebook Marketplace, get a little money back in your life. Maybe analyzing your budget, looking at some subscriptions that you're not even using anymore, getting rid of those. Just finding simple ways that you could use those hours that either decrease the amount of your spending that you don't care about, or find ways to make a little bit more money in your life. Because I feel like those things where we're spending ample amount of hours on ways to save a few bucks, feels like that if you just keep going in that direction, that could get to a hard grinding halt of sadness and depression. And spending that time just kind of figuring out a way to increase your income could probably be better spent.
Yeah. Yeah. Paula, it's funny because B. Wayne hanging out with us said still can't afford steak. In the piece, they talked about a family buying half a cow, like buying bulk meat to beat grocery inflation. This seemed, I don't know. Is that a good tip?
Well, in order to do that, you need to have enough square footage to be able to store it. You need a.
I asked
right?
the woman in Manhattan the question. No.
I mean, and so it's trade-offs, right? How much are you paying for the extra space? Even if it's in your garage or your basement, that is still square footage that you're paying for. And there are still underlying property taxes, right, that you're paying for. And I think this often, whenever, you read the frugality advice about shop at Costco and buy in bulk and stock up, I'm like, you need space for that. And you can substantially reduce your living space, but because stores will keep things for you for free if you just don't buy the thing, right? They the store's job is to hold on to that inventory until you're ready to use it. Like, that's kind of what they do.
Yeah.
So
I like where Paula was going with that. When I read that, Joe, I thought the same thing. I mean, you need not a small chest freezer in your basement. And chest freezers are actually pretty inexpensive on the whole. As appliances go, you can get one relatively inexpensively. But I like your point, Paula, about inventory and who's stocking that inventory. Because look, we eat steak. I like steak a lot. And there's no question I look at the numbers on the little sticker that's on the package of meat and think, holy cow, how did we get here? Costco, everybody knows I love Costco. And for 4 New York strips, I'm going to spend like $80 or something like that. And you think, is that $20 steak worth it to me? But in the article, I think it talked about that person spent about $2,500 for a side of beef. If I buy New York strips, 2 packages of 4 twice a month, I haven't spent $2,500 yet for the year. So, and I didn't have the holding costs. I didn't have my money tied up in that inventory sitting in the chest freezer I had to go out and buy. And by the way, steaks are only good for about 12 months if you vacuum seal them and put them in your freezer. So suddenly that cost savings, and this I think is just analogous to a lot of frugality that we think about in our lives. Sometimes the cost savings have a lot of hidden costs that you don't think about.
Is this where, Jesse, we take I think we can look at companies in the way that companies look at things. I know that the companies back in the 80s all of a sudden switched from stocking up on things to this idea of just-in-time inventory, right? I was going to ship it as close to the time frame of when it would fly off the shelf. So the shelves are as empty as they should possibly be. Is true frugality maybe thinking like a just-in-time inventory company?
Wait, is frugality thinking like a just-in-time inventory company? I'm not sure. I almost think the opposite, or if I'm following the analogy.
So actually stocking up would be more frugal?
I guess, because I just think of when I think of frugal habits, I do think of the one that Doug just referred to, whether we would call it, is it stacking beef? Are we staking Benjamins? I'm not sure. But whatever Doug was just referring to, the idea that, it's a frugal
Oh
move.
my, that's how it's done, folks. That's how it's done.
Okay. But
Dad
seriously,
jokes
going
are on
back
par,
to,
man. Way to go.
Dude,
Staking
Jesse's on
Benjamin.
fire today, Andy. I don't know what the
of
hell's
practice
going on.
over here. 17 months of practice. We go to, people say I go to Costco and I buy 8 months worth of dish soap all at once because it's frugal and it saves me money. And in that way, I think of at least the frugal habit is like finding those ways to buy in bulk or finding those ways to make things last. And whereas more of that just in time approach is like, I'm only going to buy something when I need it because any extra cash I have, I want it to be more productive than simply sitting in my pantry. Right. If the bananas that I bought last
Right.
week are not, there's no interest on those bananas. In fact,
Right.
you could make the argument, getting really nerdy here, that through things like food waste, like once we spend money on food, actually it's like a what's the word I'm looking for? It's a value that it's like a car. It's a what kind of asset? Depreciating asset. Thank you. Brain fart
Especially
there for a second.
avocados and bananas.
Exactly.
They depreciate
Avocados,
fast.
very big depreciating. So I'm getting nerdy here, but I would think that it's interesting to think about what you had just said there, Joe. But in general, frugal habits, probably you have a lot of depreciating inventory in your house.
Yeah, which makes me think that that's not particularly frugal. Like if I'm pre-spending all this money today for stuff I'm not going to use for 6 months, like how frugal is that? And then the carrying costs that Paula and Doug are talking about, maybe that's I don't know. Maybe that's a mistake.
My mini counter argument, this is a mini soapbox, and then I'll hand it back over to you guys. So one time I was thinking about gasoline, and I feel like gasoline is the product that you never, ever, ever buy more of than you actually need. Like I can't find a reason for someone to stock up on more gas than they truly need. Whereas there are the steak story is the perfect example where it's like, wait a second, did that guy just buy way more steak than he ever needed? And therefore he ends up consuming more steak than he otherwise would have. And he ends up kind of shooting himself in the foot because it's not that frugal after all. There's no way he would have eaten that much steak or spent that much steak on. And so he spent more money than he ever would have if he just approached steak from a normal point of view. And I think there are some products in our lives that lean more towards the gasoline that just like, there's no reason to ever overuse them. And therefore, having an inventory of that product could make sense. Whereas there are other products, candy might be one, or chips for me, right? I will admit, like crackers, candy, chips, they do not last in my house. And if I were to be like, oh, great, 3-for-1 Reese's Pieces after Halloween, I'm just gonna get a year's worth and put them in the like. What a terrible move, both frugally and diet wise.
Dude, we had a 25% off the day after Halloween when I walked into Albertsons down by my house. 25% off, Jesse, Kit Kats. Ooh. And it was everything I could do to not like buy them all. I was going to buy.
Are you more of like a left Kit Kat or a right Kit Kat kind of guy?
What?
Do you like the left Kit Kat or the right one better?
I think you're talking about Twix. Jesse.
Yeah.
You're right.
That's why I'm confused. I'm like, what are you talking about? Right or left? What if I like one of the two in the middle? I don't know. Andy, they bring up a good story. I'm just watching Paula just making that argument. Andy, when it comes to food waste, Jesse mentioned food waste. I got to think that that's a big piece of frugality, especially when you don't know when the next paycheck's coming.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like the just-in-time purchasing. I think a lot of the conversation around in this article was, bulk buying or, trying to have, your own garden or things like that. And I'm like, the garden thing, at least maybe you would get a personal satisfaction from. But I think if you look into the detail of how much you're going to spend and how much you're going to like put together and make sure that the deer in your neighborhood don't eat all of it and you got the right fertilizer, it's like, I don't know how frugal that ends up being. That's why they invented these things called grocery stores. And they're right down, most neighborhoods, they're fairly close to where you live. And hopefully you can go there and buy those things. And so having it all into your one place, I've done this too in my life where I'm like, you know what? I need a gym in my house, that I'm here all the time. I think that would be very efficient and frugal because I'm here. And then I try to do too many things here and then I run out of space. And then I'm like, you know what? There's a gym down the street that I can just go to, and it's like
and
20
podcast
bucks a month.
from, and then people
Exactly.
walking
And I can
behind you the whole
podcast
time.
from. Exactly. And you can make new friends, Paula. There's people walking right by you right now. So I don't know. I think sometimes we try to over optimize things a little bit, and it ends up being to our detriment. I guess that's my point.
No, I think yeah, Paula.
There are two blogs that this reminds me of. So one is JD Roth actually did the math. I believe it was JD. I might be misremembering who it was, but I'm 90% certain it was JD who actually did the math on trying to grow his own vegetables and like meticulously documented every single expense and came to the conclusion that it's not worth it.
Yeah, they're like $9 tomatoes when you're done.
Yeah, exactly. But he has like the spreadsheets and the data and like extremely detailed documentation of this experiment. And
I think Chris Mamula did the same thing.
But
when he was on the show, he was talking about, we brought up gardening, and he was like, oh God, no, that is not, he said it's really fun. Chris said it's really fun and it's great. And they taste better, by the way, when you grow your own vegetables, they taste so much better. He goes, but nowhere near frugal.
Right, exactly. And then the other thing, do you remember the blog, The Simple Dollar by Trent Ham?
Sure.
And much of what
the one that Greg McFarlane used to make fun of nonstop.
Yes, exactly. Because so much of what was in this article reminded me of what was in that blog, where Trent Ham would talk about unscrewing his oven light in order to save on the electricity that in the bulb of the oven light. He would bisect his dryer sheets, like so that way he gets twice the value out of every dryer sheet. I mean,
renting borrowing CDs from the library and ripping them and downloading them so you didn't have to have a streaming service.
I totally did that. I absolutely did that in the early days of when you could have like recordable CDs. 100% did that.
Yeah, well, you were taping pennies to the thing and getting the 10 CDs for 1 penny deal too, Doug. I'm sure.
I did that too.
Yeah, changing your name 18
Those
times.
of us of a certain age. Oh,
right.
yeah.
Right. It wasn't Andy Hill. It was Andy Hill, Andrew Hill, Hill-Andy.
BMG, I think it was. That was the one I took advantage of for a while.
Columbia House. Oh, yeah.
Had all of them. And is there any way, because I have this on my list, is there any way we make gardening to table? Like, do we make that offset food cost or not really? We all in agreement that that's a lot of fun and good, but not necessarily frugal?
Unless you own a restaurant where you could charge $65 per plate, then gardening to table.
There you go. We got a new one of those restaurants in Texarkana.
There you go.
It just looks really good. But at home, give me, what's funny is we spent a lot of time taking the tips that were in this piece and talking about why it wouldn't work. So let's kind of reframe this just briefly. What's a good frugal tip that you have, Andy?
Well, as we started that, I really think that we do have quite a bit of waste, depending on when we're in the situation in our lives. We're looking at our money and saying, okay, what am I actually spending on? The first thing that I find that a lot of people have is just like stuff they're spending money on that they don't even use anymore, whether that be, we're in the era of subscriptions. That's like an easy one to pull out of the tree, just to say, okay, how many of these streaming services that you have that you're not currently watching a show on can you save $10, $20 a month? And how does that add up over the year? That's like an easy, frugal kind of look at my budget and make sure I'm not wasting money. I feel like that's a good use of your time. If you spent 1 hour doing that, the return on your investment versus diluting your soap could be a lot higher. That's just an easy, quick tip that I found personally and through a lot of people I've spoken to.
We did that too, Andy, Cheryl, and I, just having a weekly meeting and walking through our banking app and now Monarch money, just looking and going, oh, do we really need that? Did we use that? Do we have fun with that? Like, no. Yeah. Great tip. Jesse, how about for you? What's your favorite frugal tip?
One that I suppose I'd done it a couple times before, but then we picked it up, especially when we were getting ready to have our baby. And then we've kind of continued on since then, is making intentionally big meals with the intent to then freeze like half of it for some future date. So especially with like, I don't know, some big like pasta and sauce meal, or like chili is another really good example where you can make in bulk in some sort of like big pot or something like that, and then just freeze some.
Yep.
And I don't know, I guess if you focus especially on cheaper recipes, chili is one that comes to mind. Like, okay, that in itself is frugal, but then you're frugal with your time, right? Andy, owning your time. You're doing the same cooking anyway. You just, with a bigger portion. And then you just end up eating more from home cooked meals, which is, almost always going to be cheaper than dining out.
It's funny taking that tip of batching your food. Cheryl and I just downloaded an app, which and there's several of these I found out, which when you put something in your refrigerator, you then just very quickly just boom, put down what it is in the fridge. It takes far less time than I thought it would take. And now I have like this inventory of what I have. And then I find now that I'm using up that inventory before I go and buy new stuff, which is super helpful. Paula, you got the last one before we go to our amazing trivia contest.
Well, actually, piggybacking off of what you said, what I was going to say is shop what you already have, right?
Oh.
So shop your fridge, shop your closets, shop like if you. So many of us have all of these things that have piled up over time, whether it's bags of protein powder or old clothes that are in the back of our closet that we forgot that we owned, or like old shoes, like shopping those hidden things that exist in the corners of your closets or your pantry, and doing that for and the way to actually adhere to that is take, I don't know, a week or 2 weeks or a month, take a particular period of time and commit to not buying anything, because so much of the time we forget about those things because we keep replenishing. But if you have some temporary buy nothing periods of time, then it forces you to interface with those things that you've buried and forgotten about.
Yeah, it's funny, Paula. We don't have a big freezer. We have a normal sized actually a little bit small freezer. But Cheryl and I decided to do this challenge where we weren't going to buy anything new until the freezer was empty. And I thought it would take a week. It took us over a month. It took us maybe 6 weeks. Like there was so much buried stuff hidden in that freezer. And not the most fun eating that 6 weeks, but it became quite a game, just going, oh, okay, let's see if we can get this done. At the end, we were supplementing a little bit.
Were you Googling recipes for freezer burned shrimp, Joe, at the end of it?
It still got it. I remember we had some cauliflower crust pizza that it was freezer burned on the top, but it's still packed a punch.
Did the trick.
Yeah. All right, guys, at the halfway point of every show, and no exception today, we take a pause from this scintillating discussion for our year-long trivia competition. This thing is a barn burner right to the end. We got only 3 weeks left, guys. 3 weeks left of this competition, and we don't know who's going to win. Doug, what's our score with 3 weeks to go?
Well, right now it's gotten a lot closer than I think anybody anticipated, largely because Paula had some substitutes sitting in for her throughout the fall, the later summer months and the fall, which has made things much closer. Paula has 10.5 points. OG is at 12 points, and Jesse has what could be construed as a solid lead at 13.5 points. But with 3 weeks to go, 4 if you count today, it's up for grabs. Anybody can take this thing.
No. Today is 3 weeks. Today's is 3 weeks. We only have 2 more weeks left of our trivia competition after this one. So it's going to be tight. Andy, you're playing on behalf of OG. That means you've got a real mission today, man. The good news is you get to go second. Jesse's got to go first. The other good news, wait a minute. What was Paula's score? Does she have a shot still?
Paula's at 10.5, and so it's going to be pretty.
She could tie.
How do the half points work? What is with the half points?
Long story.
Yeah. That was an ugly moment in trivia history.
Long story, Andy. It was not our finest moment. However,
I'll learn.
This next one, Andy, will be our finest moment, and that's Doug doing today's trivia. Doug, you ready?
Sure am, Joe. Hey there, stackers. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug. And all this talk about frugality has me thinking about beef prices. If you've been to a grocery store lately, you'll know that prices are skyrocketing. I love this idea of buying half a cow, though, which prompted me to look up this trivia question. As of January 1st of this year, the USDA, National Agricultural Statistics Service, reported that herds are at their lowest inventory in the U.S. since 1951. So here, you guys are pros. I probably don't have to instruct you on this, but just follow me here. When I say low, you guys say, how low is it? Ready? Head of cattle count are so low.
How low is
it?
Funny you should ask. That is my trivia question. In millions of heads of cattle, how low was the inventory of cattle in the USA earlier this year? I'll be back right after I find out how they raise just half a cow to sell it later. I mean, how would half a cow even work?
It could be very tough. That's a tough science experiment there, Doug. Yeah, tough for the parents of half a cow. So let's begin, Jesse, with you. Head of cattle in the United States as of January of this year.
Yeah, no idea. This is one of those ones where I think it's less than the heads of humans, but is it 1 million? Is it 10 million? Is it 100 million?
You're answering in millions.
Understood. Okay, understood. I'm going to say that there's 20% the number of cows that there are people, 350 million people. I'm going to say 70 is my answer.
70 million.
Correct. 70 million. But
right, Andy,
70.
What are you thinking about that?
I think people eat a lot of beef in our country, so I'm going to go a little higher. I'm going to say like 120 million.
120 million. And Paula?
So I agree that people eat a lot of beef, but I think a lot of it is imported.
Oh.
So
from Argentina?
Yes, from Argentina and other places. Japan, Kobe beef, Wagyu beef, right? There's all kinds. So does it have to be a whole number, or can it be a decimal point?
There can be a decimal point.
All right, then I'm going to take the under and go with 69.99999.
What the hell?
69.9. I'll just go 69.9. I think we can stop there. All right. Paula's locked in at 69.9 million. Jesse's got 70 million. Andy's got the upside at 120 million. Who's going to win? We'll find out in just a moment. 3, 2, 1. Jesse, you kick this off by saying it was 70 million. How you feeling now that Paula capped you at the kneecaps?
I mean, I was feeling better until Peep Fop Doodle laughed at me in the chat. I mean, I've still got no clue. I've got
Peep Fop Doodle's like 70. How cute. Andy, 120 million. Everybody else thought it was much lower. You feeling good?
No, I feel like even more of a joke than for Peep Fop Doodle. You know,
I don't know.
What are you gonna do?
It could be something there.
You just put it out there. You got to make a guess, right?
We eat a lot of beef.
We do.
Paula?
And we drink a lot of milk.
I think it's PF Op Doodle, like personal finance operations. Doodle. Personal finance operations
interesting.
Doodle.
I like it.
Okay.
Or maybe
now
operator?
I didn't mean, how do you feel about PF Op Doodle's name? How do you feel about your guess
about
here?
my guess about 69.9 repeating? You know, I'm actually feeling pretty good about it. I don't want to jinx myself, but I feel good.
89 feeling goods in a row. Can't be wrong, Doug. What's the is Paula gonna win this thing?
Well, I'm not going to tell you that right away, but I will say, hey there, stackers. I'm beef lover and guy who's the Ferdinand of this podcast, Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug. Cattle herds are the lowest they've been since 1951, which is why I thought we'd ask just how low is low. How many head of cattle in millions is the size of the USA herd? Well, I'll tell you this. It's 33.3 million fewer than what Andy guessed. It's 16.8 million more than what Paula guessed, and just 16.7 million more than what Jesse guessed, because the correct answer is 86.7 million, making Jesse our winner. And he's more or less locked it up, Joe.
Well, that takes him to 14.5, means OG's got to win the last 2 in a row
to tie it up. Yep.
That's
well, no, that would
Jesse.
give him 15, and he would win.
I think
OG's at 12 right now.
Oh, OG's
PF
at
Op Doodle
12.
gets a Big Mac
OG's
after
at
that.
12.
Oh, that's it.
We got a 12-ounce flank steak going to PF Op Doodle. Straight from me to you. I will buy you an Omaha steak, Op Doodle. You can have a big glass of milk with it.
Jesse's like, LOL this, PF Op Doodle. That's funny. Nice job, Jesse. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Jesse's only had to cheat
what was
like
the
how many
number?
times, Doug? 4 to win this thing?
He did. He flat out brazenly cheated 4 times.
I am so thrilled that a member of the coalition to defeat OG, it looks as though he will emerge victorious.
Paula, let's just focus on you for a second. All you had to do was ignore your gut one time and say 70.111111. That's all you had to do.
It is so statistically improbable how my gut can be wrong 100% of the time.
No, what's even more worrisome is that you trust your gut 100% of the time. At some point, you just go, oh, if my gut says this, I would just do the opposite. MSL video says Jesse watches Yellowstone. Yeah. There's more cows in Idaho than people, PF Opdoodle says. All right, let's dive into the second half of this conversation, because, we talked about our best frugality tips, but Andy, let's talk about let's get a little bit strategic about our frugality. Is it grow the gap, meaning the gap between expenses or income, or is it ruthless expenses first and then try to grow income after we've figured out how to live a frugal lifestyle? Like, given those two scenarios, do you try to earn more and lock in your spending first, or do you try to get really frugal first and then grow your income?
I do think conscious spending is easier in the beginning, than coming up with some new side hustle or a new business idea or things like that. And that can be done pretty quickly, I would say, in an afternoon, if you're really looking at your expenses and saying, where is it going? Now, some of the bigger decisions on the frugality note, like, is my house too big? Those are some big questions that you'd have to work. And that's not an afternoon. That's like, hey, I planned for a family of 4 and we had 1 kid, but we've got a 3,000 square foot house and we don't really need all this space. Those are big decisions, but those could be the biggest changes when it comes to growing that gap. Like your housing, do we have too much car? Are we spending too much? And if we go back to the groceries thing, like, groceries can be a big part of the expenses. Like, one switch that my wife and I made, 5-7 years ago, they built an Aldi near where we lived. We switched to that, and man, it is not that much different at all from where we're going to Kroger, and we're saving so much more money just for those everyday expenses. Those top 3 things: housing, transportation, food. If you can hit those make a big difference. But yeah, on the long term, finding ways to grow the gap for your income, it has to be a part of the conversation when it comes to this frugality conversation. And the best place to earn money, in my opinion, is the place you're already making money. So if you're making money at your employer, figure out a way that those folks can eventually pay you a little bit more for what you're doing, whether that's overtime or commissions or bonuses, or, figuring out a way to prove your worth there so you can get progressive raises. And if that's not possible there, then yeah, maybe figure out a way you can earn a little bit more money with the side hustle, something you're passionate about, and eventually move towards that. And long term, where you're being able to not only make more money, but also own more of your time down the road.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, what's funny, Andy, is that when we were neighbors, you would extol the virtues of Aldi, maybe I would say once a week with me. And I'd go, whatever, sounds great. Sounds fantastic. And then we got one after I moved here to Texarkana. We got one just a few years ago, like 2 years ago. And I went in for the first time, even after you told me the whole 2 years you were lived right down the street from me. I finally went into one. I'm a moron. I am such a moron. I should have hit up Aldi. What a man.
Some of those grocery stores are super pricey. And like, if you're just going there for your everyday stuff, you know, like it doesn't always have to be the fancy food that you want to get or whatever, but most of your staples you can get there and it's a lot less. And this is not an Aldi commercial or anything, but whatever the equivalent of that is in your neighborhood, there's one of those. Like, find that place that you can get most of your stuff for a lot less.
Paula, do you start off with earn more or save more?
Well, to your original question about grow the gap, I start with grow the gap, but I don't think that that's incompatible with what Andy just said. Like, you know, Andy, what you just described is growing the gap, because there are two ways to grow the gap. You either spend less or you earn more, or you do a combination of the two. And if you spend an afternoon just picking the low-hanging fruit, boom, all right, you focused on growing the gap and you have massively grown the gap in one afternoon. And then you can focus, on growing the gap through the earn more side of the equation. But I think if you start with the framework of how do I grow the gap? Like, what is the delta between income and expense? And how do I make that delta as wide as possible? If you start with that framework and then ask yourself, what is the next step to do from that point forward? I think that's the mindset.
You'll find some low-hanging fruit fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Like, you ask yourself that question. Everybody who's listening to us thinks of something immediately that is like, oh, there's that thing. That's a 2-second move that would save me some money. Jesse, you're nodding your head.
Yeah, I think the best thing about the low-hanging fruit is that it's on sale at Aldi. So you can go pick it up right there.
Oh my God,
I
Doug,
think that...
what is up with Jesse?
I don't know why I'm even here today. What do you need me for?
Oh man, I can't believe none of you pounced on that. Like a good deal at Aldi. You got to pounce on them.
Aldi, if you want to sponsor this podcast, you can see how good we are at just tying it in.
I think their prices are too low to spend money on advertising.
Probably. Bummer. And we'll do it for free, apparently.
They rely on us.
Right, right.
No, I really like tackling this question. And I think that lowering the expenses, focusing on the expenses side is definitely the best use of your time in the short run. Like, if someone said, I need to fix my personal fund, my budget today or tomorrow, it's like, okay, you got to look at your expenses and you got to figure out what you can trim out of it. But that trimming, and this goes back to what Andy was saying earlier about, like, when you're diluting your dish soap, like, there's almost so much diluting you can do and then you're done. Similarly, there's just only so much you can cut out of your budget and then you're done. So spend a weekend to cut and trim the fat out of your budget. And then after that, if you want to continue growing the gap, I think you have to focus on the income side. And there's no easy thing to do on the income side for most of us, other than, it's get a new certification, find your way to a promotion, potentially consider job hopping. I mean, all these things take time. If it was really easy to make more money, I think a lot of people would be making more money. It's not really easy. So you have to take your time and find your path forward.
Actually, it's funny, man, Jesse, at the beginning of the year, I flew out to Las Vegas and spoke with Alex Hermosi, and he can certainly make making more money sound super easy. Like, he's all you got to do is boom, 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 right? But every point that he made was what you talked about, which was get a certification. If you're working in a retail environment and you like it, that's great. If it's your lifestyle, that's great. But you could probably go take some part-time class just for a few weeks, gain a certifications for something that you'd love to do, and almost 2x your income overnight.
Yeah. I think you can. And it's very doable. Like, there's a difference maybe between like simple and easy. Because
Sure.
I truly think it is simple. I think there are a lot of simple paths to increasing your income. I'm not sure any of them are easy. Like if you already feel like you've got kids at home, your day job is really busy, you're just not sure where in the day you're going to find this time to go out and get this associate's degree or the certification or whatever it may be. Like that's where it becomes hard. It can be both simple and hard. And I think that's probably the way that most of these paths are.
Andy, when you brought up looking at the tough things, right? The home and the automobile, have you ever had to go through that and thought about, you know what if we get rid of a car and made the hard choice?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that we did in the neighborhood that we live in, and Joe, because we were neighbors at one point. There's an opportunity for you just to continue doing this lifestyle inflation, especially when it comes to family, families around here. So we have a house that fits for our family. But yeah, there's something in the back of my brain all the time, and I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the society we're in or just the neighborhood that I'm in, being like, well, if I worked harder and I made more money, then I could upgrade this thing, give my kids a bigger room, or I've always wanted a bigger office, or I could have that gym here, but unless you have those conversations like Paula, if you had those conversations with yourself and just say, what is enough? What's contentment for me? What is my enough point? Having those conversations with yourself and figuring out, no, this is just fine. And are there other solutions for those types of things that are out of this house that I can go do that won't require me to upgrade everything? So I think there's a lot of like right sizing opportunities or downsizing opportunities. Do I need a new car? No, you don't need a new car. You can use a gently used car. Or can you use this car for 10, 15 years? Does it look as cool as the new ones? No, but who cares? Like you're more comfortable, you're more content with your life. You're not feeling strapped all the time. So those bigger ones, the housing, the transportation, the food, yeah. I mean, you joked about the Aldi thing, but there's a lot of people that think going to Aldi's like for poor people or something like that. So they don't want to have that view of themselves. So a lot of it is like societal, like lifestyle inflation, all these sort of keeping up with the Joneses kind of ideas. If you can kind of say, you know what, I'm in my 40s now, I don't really care what people think, which I'm working on right now. Then you can have a lot better opportunity to stick with the things that really matter to you. And those big three are a big part of the puzzle there.
Are huge. Paula, did you ever have to look at your housing, your automobile expenses?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Those were the primary things that I targeted in order to save money, because housing in particular is such a major line item in almost everybody's budget. I for 5 years had zero out of pocket housing expenses, and to doing that by virtue of house hacking, um, doing that in my 20s literally changed my life. Like I'm not trying to be overly dramatic when I say that, but that was what gave me money to invest while I was in my 20s, and that has had a compounding effect that has positively impacted my life so far.
You're doing that right now, aren't you? Just moving into the gym.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, think of all of the electricity that I'm saving by just podcasting out of here.
You got a great shower there. You got a snack bar. I mean, it solves a lot of problems.
I'm just looking at some of the comments. Melissa says one of my employers had offered house upgrades, car upgrades. I don't know that I understand, Melissa, what she's talking about. Melissa, are you talking about that you upgraded your car, you upgraded your house because of the fact that you had a...
I think she's trying to say that she witnessed her employer doing that they were constantly upgrading their house or
the lifestyle
their
creep.
car.
I got you.
Creep, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Good stuff. I want to ask about this idea of frugal sprints versus permanent lifestyle design. Andy, do you guys practice any of these frugal sprints with your family where you do things like we talked about just before the break, the freezer challenge?
Yeah, my wife and I was gonna jump in on that. My wife and I call it refrigerator challenge, where it's like, okay, do we have a lot of these like leftover containers or things like that that we've, maybe we went to a restaurant and we took the giveaway or the takeaway from our kids not eating all the meal, and then we put it in there, and then we all of a sudden look, man, our refrigerator is full of stuff. Why are we going out again, or why are we going to the grocery store? Let's do a refrigerator challenge. Let's clean this thing out. And yeah, like you said, sometimes by the day 6 or 7, it's like, okay, I don't really want to eat like 6 packs of hummus again here, but I guess I'll make that my meal. But yeah, I mean, it also feels cleansing. It feels like you have utilized the resources that you have within your house and you're not wasting, because I feel bad when I waste things or I throw out food in the garbage can. It feels like I am throwing money in the garbage can, and that is not something that I like to do. And luckily I have a wife that feels the same way, where it's like, no, let's use the stuff we have, and it just feels right. Honestly, it just does. And the same point that Paula made up earlier, where if we look inside our house for the thing that we're about to buy on Amazon, say, I want to buy this thing. Wait a second. Do I have something like that in my house already that I haven't used, or I haven't even taken out of the box? Or, I think if we can think, what do I have in my house first? And then maybe the second thought is like, what can I buy used instead of brand new? And then go to new. Maybe
We
we can have that sort of cascading effect. That
we
could be
also even
helpful.
started thinking about, Andy, in my house, can I borrow it?
Yeah, there you go. Even better. And
If I'm
a
just
great
gonna use it a
opportunity
few
for a
times.
connection for a friend, like
Yeah.
we're in this era of loneliness and isolation. Like, go talk to your neighbor and say, can I borrow that thing?
Again, more crazy talk. Like, what? Can I gotta talk to somebody?
I have to talk. No
What,
way.
what are we talking about? Frugal sprints. Jesse, in your house, you guys do any of the frugal sprints?
To be honest with you, we haven't, or at least none that I can really think of. It's more of just like trying to monitor the budget on a monthly
Okay.
basis, and when things get a little out of hand, just reining it back in, or having some conversations with each other before we choose to spend any sort of big dollar items.
But none of the no spend challenges, none of that.
Not really. No. But I will say the one thing I thought was really interesting, because it crossed my mind earlier, and then I was really glad that Andy brought it back up, is this interesting fact how frugality almost has this like slight moral, ethical bit to it too, because of that feeling of being wasteful.
Mhm.
I think a lot of us who have frugal tendencies, there is that, okay, well, here's an example for you, Joe. Is there a sprint in my house other than me cleaning up other people's plates? That is the frugal sprint in our house, is that someone has extra food on their plate. You can't waste it, so Jesse's gonna eat it. So that's the one version of a frugal sprint we've done. But no, I just think it's interesting, because we all know about this whole, money's more than numbers. It's really about psychology. And I think that moral, ethical element of frugality is really interesting. Not that we have to chase down that path at all, but it's worth bringing up.
I just noticed that Jesse changed his subtitle to Aldi Associate.
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
Purveyor of the low-hanging fruit.
That is, again, Aldi, if you got a few bucks, and I know, Andy, to your point, maybe not, but
Maybe not.
Paula, spending sprints or frugal sprints, not spending sprints. You were on a wild spending spree called Vegas when you lived there.
I mean, sometimes I do go on spending sprints, yeah. But in terms of a frugal sprint, for me the big thing is groceries, because it's so easy for the inventory to just go to be off, right? Like, you buy too many groceries one week, and then suddenly you've got to eat the stuff, or it's going to go bad, and you don't have any more space in your fridge. You've run out of space in the freezer, and so like that's the thing more than anything else that I'm trying to modulate, because it's so it doesn't take a whole lot for the inventory to just be off.
Yeah. Andy, one more question for you. Have you involved your kids at all in any of your frugality exercises?
Yeah, I think what we try to do with the kids is have them practice intentionality with their spending too. They have figured out ways through conversations with my wife and I to earn money here at the house, and then earn money outside of the house as well. And then with that, we have them work on utilizing it in specific ways. So spending, saving, giving, and investing, and then kind of breaking it down to those categories. And we even give my daughter a clothing allowance per month, and this helps her to see how much she has and then be intentional with her spending, save up when she wants to buy bigger things. And it's amazing how, if you do this early enough, it actually works. And she is so massively responsible. I'm so proud of her for all that she's doing right now. And she's just actually showing us the way, really, because I end up overspending sometimes. And I'm like, dang, I need to be more like my daughter and actually sticking within the budget. So I think that if you start those conversations early, they can really be helpful.
I think that's a great place to leave it. What a fantastic discussion. I love how this Wall Street Journal piece, we took their suggestions and went, yeah, no, thank you. And I think we supersized them. I guess that's another marketing thing, isn't it? We bought more. Scrooby and Frugal. I'm going to supersize it. I don't know. What's another term for that? We made it better. All right, let's find out what each of you are doing. Let's start with our guest of honor. Andy, you've got a pre-sale goal, I know, for the book, and people can be first in line to get it. So book comes out, I believe, is January 21st. I don't have the date in front of me.
You got it right, man. You have a stellar memory. Yes, January 21st, Own Your Time comes out. You can pre-order it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. And yes, we have a pre-order goal of 500 by January 21st. And I think I have a goal thermometer right over there. I can't show it on a calendar, or on the camera, but we're at 151. So if anybody wants to support me on the goal, that'd be great. But the book is all about, it's for families who want to own more of their time. They're feeling pressed financially. They're feeling pressed time-wise. They say, wow, does life really need to feel this way? And through our conversations today, I think we even discovered, like, just with some intentionality and some focus on where your money's going, and then growing that gap, as Paula said, you can really start to realize that you can own more of your time progressively. This isn't an overnight thing, but over time, you can really say, wow, I've gone from feeling time broke to time wealthy. And that's what we're trying to explore in the book.
What a great way to start your year too. I mean, it's the end of January, it shows up in the mail, and now you're on the attack, beginning your 2026 on the right foot. Paula, what's going on this December at Afford Anything?
Well, it's the first Friday of the month, and on the first Friday of every month, I do a macroeconomic update. So what's happening in the wider economy and how is that affecting you and your wallet? That is what every first Friday episode is all about. We talk about the jobs report, inflation data, all the big macro factors.
And then you take the macro factor and then the inflation and get frugal.
Well, we take the macro and make it micro. Take the macro and then talk about how it impacts you and your family. So that is at the Afford Anything podcast.
Where finer podcasts are found, wherever finer podcasts are found, like the Personal Finance for Long-Term Investors podcast. Jesse, what's on the calendar for you this fine December?
We got next week. Well, actually, just a couple days ago, an episode with Andy came out. It's awesome. You should go tune in. And then next week, one of our Ask Me Anythings comes out. I tackle a question about the different lengths of mortgages, which now more than ever, apparently now there's a 50-year mortgage on the table. And I also do a deep dive into HSA accounts, deeper than I've ever gone before. Because here's a pop quiz question for all you listeners. What happens to an HSA account when you die? Because it's actually much worse than I assumed it would be. And anyway, so a couple cool deep dive Ask Me Anything questions.
Dun, dun, dun. You got to listen to find out. That's at the Personal Finance for Long-Term Investors podcast, where finer podcasts are found. All right. Big thanks to our YouTube friends for joining us. You guys rocked as usual. We appreciate you so much. We record these Monday afternoons most of the time. So if you show up on YouTube on Mondays, if you get the 201 newsletter, we'll email you and tell you exactly when we're recording every week. That's stackingbenjamins.com/201 to subscribe. It's always free and it's always really, really good stuff. Doug, you've got it from here, man. What should we take away from today's episode?
Well, I guess I'm driving the bus. Here's what we should have learned today, Joe. First, take some advice from Andy Hill. The best place to find more money is where you're already employed. Hey, Andy, not for nothing, but is embezzlement spelled with two Z's or just one?
Nope. Probably not.
Second, that's what I got out of what he said. Second, don't forget when Jesse told us about staking Benjamins. Quote of the year right there. Sometimes it's better to have your extra cash in your bank account instead of in your pants. I think that's a direct quote. What he said.
Again, nope.
But did I get that one wrong? But the big lesson, don't ask Joe's mom about raising half a cow. She'll make jokes about raising half a man. Really, Ma? I mean, he's sitting right here. So what if he can't operate a chainsaw or change a fuel filter on an 83 El Camino like
This show is the property of SB Podcasts, LLC, copyright 2025, and is created by Joe Saul-Sehy. You'll find out about our awesome team at stackingbenjamins.com, along with the show notes and how you can find us on YouTube and all the usual social media spots. Come say hello. Oh yeah, and before I go, not only should you not take advice from these nerds, don't take advice from people you don't know. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Before making any financial decisions, speak with a real financial advisor. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and we'll see you next time back here at the Stacking Benjamin Show.
What was that? It's called the medium sketch.
The medium sketch?
Yeah, it wasn't rare, and it certainly wasn't well done.